Tonight's episode of Modern Men is brought to you by the Hero Initiative. If you guys want to see how you can be a hero to creators in need, go to heroinitiative.org for more information. All right, guys, it's Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern. We're back live here on Modern Men, and we got a special big show planned for you guys tonight. Before we dive into the chat, we'll go over the panel here. My name is CWood. Over there next to me, we got my co-host. Oh, my God, look at that beard. It's ComicManAndy. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing good. I'm good. Good to see you guys. I just realized I had made a boo-boo. I'm the first in, so everything's all off. We got to switch, man.
Everything's all off.
Oh, it's over. Up. Oh, man.
There we go. There's where Carson needs to be.
Well, big thanks, Andy, for giving me my seat back, I guess. Oh, man. Now everyone's messing
There we go.
and gimmicks. All right. So thanks, Andy, for being here. Then down there in the basement, we got JB from DiscoveryBay Comics. How you doing, JB?
How you doing there?
Yeah, pretty much.
No, I'm good. Good. Thanks for having me. I've been enjoying 4 days off of YouTube with the family. Actually, this is the first time I've kind of been on all day. So yeah,
wow.
It's been one of those weekends.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I want to talk about some dollar books with JB. And then I slept through all that anyway, so we're all good. Welcome to the show, JB. And we got a special guest. When we talk about Watchmen, this guy has been living and breathing Watchmen as of late. We got the great Legend Show in the house. How you doing, Ledge?
It's good to be here live on Modern Man. I've been counting down the days before this February 17th episode of Modern Man, because every time in the chat at the end of the show, you put down what modern read you'd like the panel to read. And I always was putting down Watchmen on there. Watchmen, always put it on there. And, man, I'm excited to read it tonight. The first time I ever heard about this book, the book itself, I'd seen the movie, but I heard back in the day the comic book community did an awesome Watchmen video series where each person took like one chapter of the Watchmen out of all the 12 chapters, and they reviewed it, and it was really phenomenal. Howler Mouse, he was a part of that, so always, got to lift my beanie off for him to, keep telling me to read that book, read that Watchmen. It is real good. It's damn good. I've read it 4 times. Oh, there he is. Howler Mouse is here. See, you put Watchmen on the screen. It's one of Howler Mouse's favorite things. No doubt about it. The king of the Howler Mouse is here, man. The king of the Howlers here to stay.
Yeah, I know you're a big Howler Mouse fan, so welcome into the chat, Howler Mouse. Hopefully we can do this review a little bit of justice for you, because Legend was telling me about like how there was like 12 issues and 12 videos breaking out. I thought that was a really cool idea. I'd like to try to do that with something.
Yeah, like Ghost Critic, Oddfellow Thoughts, Costin Brom Star. God, I think just tons of people. The Maw, I think MAW, the Maw used to do one. That's an old school YouTuber. Yeah, man. Some of the best YouTubers back in the day went over the Watchmen, and it was just awesome. So I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear what Andy and JB think about this stuff, man, because it's some of my favorite reading I've ever read,
Yeah. Well, if you guys hadn't noticed, we're actually short one member of the Modern Men panel tonight, and that's DruManchu, baby. He is getting ready to welcome another member to his family. He might be an Uncle Drew.
Uncle Drew
shoots instead of kayfabe now. So I do have one prepared statement I can read from Drew here. So it says, good morning, Modern Men, or good evening, Modern Men. I just want to let everyone know that if you really enjoyed Watchmen, you want to read Doomsday Clock. It is one of my favorite reads ever, and Gary Frank is one of the best artists I've ever seen on the written page. Signed DruManchu. So we'll keep going from there and just ignore all that just happened. Now we'll finally get into the chat here. Like I said, we got Chris Barrett, he is first in the chat. He's got that blue wrench of doom, making sure he stays first in the chat. So how you doing, Chris? Nice to see you tonight. Like I said, we got Howler Mouse in the chat. We got Gore Vidal in the chat. I know he's been helping out, keeping up the reason. He's got a cool thumbnail there. Check that out. That's awesome. We got ComicManAndy. He's hanging out in the chat as well tonight. One of Legend's favorites, the Stream Elements robot. I know
there you go.
Today you've had some bouts with some artificial intelligences today. Trying
Oh,
to get
God, I
internet
have,
network
yeah.
working. And Chris Barrett says, that's not what Uncle Drew would say about Doomsday Clock. We'll keep going after that. But anyway, and then Bob World's in the chat. I can't forget about Bob World. He did that killer intro. Check out the link to Bob World's channel below if you want to pay him tribute and check out some more cool intros that he's done for the Comic Corps. That guy is doing some awesome work over there on his channel. All right, so without further ado, we'll go ahead and start talking about the Watchmen. So kind of before we get into the read, we're going to structure this episode a little bit differently. I think this is such an important book to talk about. We're just going to spend the whole hour kind of talking about the origins of the Watchmen, the actual book, of course, and, you know, the fallout that the Watchmen had on the world of comic books. So basically came out in 1986 or 1987 in individual issues. So you kind of got to look at the time that they were crafting the story of the Watchmen. Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, of course, creators of the Watchmen. So 1985, we're going through this like big restructure in comic books, especially on the DC Comics side. When I think 1985, I think Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think them going through this hard reboot, basically, and just restructuring their whole universe from the ground up. Meanwhile, DC has purchased the rights to the Charlton comics characters. So they're trying to, you know, they've slowly integrated a lot of the characters in to the DC continuity. But when it comes to Crisis, you have the opportunity to work some of these characters in to your main universe. And if you've read Crisis, from the first get-go, you see a character such as Blue Beetle being thrown in and involved with characters like Earth 2 Superman, Commandy, so on and so forth. So Legend, I want to turn this over to you so you can talk about a little bit about the origins of the Charlton characters. So what do you kind of take away from DC restructuring in 85 and their use of the Charlton characters?
Well, I know originally like Alan Moore wanted to use those characters, but DC wouldn't let him use them because they wanted to, you know, keep those characters around. I mean, when you talk about just the freaking history of, you know, some of these Charlton characters like Captain Atom, Ted Kord's Blue Beetle, The Question, you know, those main three, those are some of my favorites. Of course, I know, I can't remember who comedian or whatever was, you know, modeled after or whatnot, but I know old Peacemaker, that was the one. Okay. So I don't know much about that character. I know that the Sally and Lori were based off Phantom Lady, and maybe there was, I can't remember. Black Canary, that's right, Black Canary. But man, you know, my favorites, Ted Kord, The Question, Vic Sage, and classic Captain Atom. And those are just all great characters. So, you know, Al Moore created characters that were pretty much the exact kind of same characters. I mean, you flesh them out, maybe put a different costume, give them a different name. But, man, they were some kick-ass characters in the Watchmen book. And I got to say, like, I love all those characters and stuff. But, like, Dan Dryberg's Night Owl and you know, Rorschach kind of being like The Question, you know, always seeing black and white. That was I learned all that stuff from Howler Mouse's videos that he did on Ayn Rand and some of Steve Ditko's ways that, you know, the way he thinks, you know, with Mr. A and stuff like that. But man, just kick ass history. I mean, Alan Moore, man, what was it? Swamp Thing, Killing Joke. I mean, in those 80s, man, that for Alan Moore, he was just killing it on all the stuff he was doing, you know. Of course, you know, what is it? You know, they don't give him the money he deserves, and he's like, screw them DC people, and then he left. But yeah, man, just a great history, and I really like how they did use those old school Charlton characters, because a lot of them are just cool characters, you know.
No, absolutely, yeah. That's what I was kind of going to ask.
Nightshade,
yes,
that was it.
Absolutely.
That's her.
I was going to ask Andy and JB. We'll start with Andy. Do any of these Charlton characters mean anything to you? Like Captain Atom, Question, Blue Beetle? Is this anything you would ever read in your life?
No. Never read any of their stuff. Didn't know. I didn't until you said Charlton characters just now. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah, it makes it hard to draw comparisons, but I can definitely pull up Wikipedia and start reading and learning.
Well,
Sure.
they do have they do have it laid out. I read the Wikipedia on the Watchmen. They got it laid out pretty good as far as like the characters. Like you said, Peacemaker. That was the one I always like forget out of the back of mine. Nightshade's another one who's more based off Laurie, while Sally, the old school Jupiter, is based off I think Phantom Lady. Even the costumes are similar for Phantom Lady and Sally Jupiter. From the Minutemen or whatever. But man, it's just such a humongous story, Carson. It's like you got 12 chapters, plus you're getting flashbacks from the original superhero group, Captain Metropolis, Mothman, Dollar Bill, all the Minutemen characters. And not only are you getting that, you're getting the characters, from the mid 80s, but you're also getting the history up until the point of the mid 80s. And dude, there's just so much to take in. There's, if you've got I got this one here, the deluxe edition. Carson, you got it too, but it's got the Hollis Mason story stuff in there. It's got newspaper stuff in there that are, it's going on, like what's happening to all these like writers, artists, scientists. Of course, we know that he's putting them on an island to make that big monster. But man, so much stuff going on, and you got the freaking pirate storyline in there.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, the Tales from the Black Freighter. So when you read Tales from the Black Freighter, you're seeing a lot of things that are going on in the Watchmen story, but it's like a totally different like story setting. I mean, that was freaking awesome.
So my last question to you, Legend, before we get started and go into our actual kind of thoughts on the book, what do you think the impact would have been if DC would have just gotten a thumbs up and like, yeah, use the Charlton characters, throw them in this crazy, insane, gritty tale? Like, could you imagine the impact that would have had on Blue Beetle, Question, and the other characters?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the thing. Like, the impact, I think, would just be too great. Actually, I'm glad they used like brand new characters and not those characters, because I wouldn't want Question to die at the end, in the snow, and Captain Adam just seems so like distant. The more we learn about John Osterman and stuff throughout the story, like, and you can see his growth even past the book and into things like before Watchmen and all that. I know we're not talking about that stuff tonight, but he seems like he has a distance from the rest of humanity the longer he is in his blue form. But yeah, definitely I'm glad they got their own characters, so the Watchmen characters can be done with how they needed to be done with. I know some people didn't like how they did them in Doomsday Clock, gone too soon. But yeah, I'm glad they didn't use the characters like Ted Kord, because Ted Kord had a great death in Infinite Crisis, right? With that jerk that had all their info on the computer screen.
Maxwell Lord.
Yeah, that bastard. I hate that bastard because he killed Ted Kord. I get really emotional and mad when some of my favorite characters get killed and stuff. But that's what it's supposed to do, man. It's supposed to tug at your heartstrings. And after reading this book, Watchmen, I mean, like, it's like, dude, it's like for people that haven't read Watchmen, it's like, damn, it can get kind of deep.
Absolutely. And yeah, I agree with you 100%, Legend. I'm glad we got to see the growth of those characters. I know your boy Howard Mouse doesn't like them, but I like seeing the dynamic between Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. I'm sorry, Howard, but that's still one of my favorite team-ups in comics, man. I'm glad we got to see that. And of course, that had all the success with the Question back in the day. And me personally, I love the 52 weeks run and getting to see Question's growth in that, along with Renee Montoya. Phenomenal storyline if you guys hadn't had a chance to read it. But yeah, I want to get back into the chat, and then we'll start asking our panel their opinions on the Watchmen. Howler Mouse says, all throughout getting the DCU role-playing game, Alan Moore worked on the source book in one of the modules. Darwin Cook, Legend, gone too soon, of course.
I know, gone too soon. Love Darwin Cook, man.
He pulled all those from his Minutemen miniseries. So that's awesome. And then Drew has an update on what's going on with him. He says, hey guys, couldn't make it tonight at the hospital waiting for the birth of his niece, but he loves Watchmen. 10.0 Jim Mint.
That's good.
Big praise coming from Drew because he doesn't even like DC.
I know, dude. Tell your sister to have babies all the time. Maybe you'll be happier.
And we got Chad R in the chat. How you doing, Chad R? Thank you, Chad R, for adding graphics when I was still reading the Watchmen tonight, getting ready for tonight's episode. So big, huge shout out to Chad. All right, so that brings us to the Watchmen finally, the actual book, one of the most infamous books of all time, one of the most famous books, an actual recognized award-winning novel when you think graphic novels to this day, this kind of almost invented the term graphic novel. So I'm curious to hear what our inexperienced, I don't want to call you guys inexperienced because you're readers, you're less seasoned readers. We'll go with that. So Andy, we'll start with you. What are your initial impressions of the Watchmen?
You could definitely go with inexperienced. Holy moly. I don't know how to begin, really. This was heady. This was a lot to read. If I could pick Alan Moore's brain right now, I'd have to ask him right off the bat, like, why choose comic books to deliver this story? Because it reads like a condensed shortened novel, like a shortened story. Like, this could have been like fleshed out into like, if it was delivered as an actual book, like, and they compounded on the story, it's like, wow, this would have been an amazing read. As a comic book, my first read through it was like, I've read it like about once and a half. Like, the Comixology version, I flipped through it and I was reading. I was like, oh, I hate it. Come to find out, it reads better in the comic book, in my opinion. This story transports you back into the 80s. Now, you guys talk about the other characters, the Charlton characters and whatnot, but this is like a what if superheroes had to deal with the pitfalls of being normal humans too at the same time, right? Which is kind of crazy. And what's the biggest pitfall in the story? The Cold War. And it's like, that's just like, wow, I forgot about that way of life back when I was a kid.
It's not the normal 80s though, right? It's somebody, because there were some weird technological advances that I think they reference in the 80s that aren't really there in the 80s. Like, you know, the electric car, because this guy invented it. Remember the guy's delivering the papers and he tells the kid to get out of the way because he's got to plug in. Oh, that's going to get me to the next town. You know, we don't have that now.
It's like a different timeline. Like, just another universe. Like the 80s, a little bit more futuristic with electric cars and
that girl smoking that thing that looks like a crack pipe. It ain't a crack pipe because they're advertising that on the back of one of the magazines. You know, there's an ad for it. So that's just how they smoke, you know, in this timeline. I mean, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I read it first on Comixology, and I was like I said, I was kind of like torn. One moment I'm loving it, the next moment I'm like, what? I feel like I was struggling through the story. But then when I got done with it, I turned around and I grabbed the actual comic book and I opened it up. What did it do? I could feel the ink. I could smell the ink. The colors are way better in the book than what they are on an iPad. And I was delivered into that story reading it. If anybody hasn't read this, they need to grab the books and read it. Don't read it. Don't read it on digitally first. Go read the books first, because that made the story. It delivered another dynamic to the story that I didn't know was possible, and I had forgotten about with other comic books. But
exactly,
I want to dig back into it and read it again. It's heady. Like I said, I feel like I want to ask Alan Moore is like why he chose comic books, graphic novels to deliver this story at first, because I almost feel like it's a condensed version of an amazing book.
You know, Howler brings up a good point that, and I've read this also somewhere before, that Alan Moore wanted to show ways to tell a story in a comic that can only be done in a comic. So a lot of the things, you know, of course, back in the 80s, they didn't have the CGI and all the kind of stuff they have today where they could probably, you know, do another exact copy of this. But Alan Moore was really adamant about that he wanted to make this form, this story only told in the comics. So, you know, you could maybe draw in, you know, some of the superhero fans, but also some of the adult readers too, that really want to go inside the psyches of all of these characters and find out what they're really made of and how they're adapting in this alternate 1980s like world. It's just like, I mean, I like a lot of times I'm just speechless because, man, I could read this over again, and I can always find something new that I've never seen before. Or the book itself, through Alan Moore's words and Gibbons' artwork, they'll tell me a new story that I haven't checked out before. So I think when you can do that to these classic stories that, you know, you could read them multiple times and always find something new with that story, then man, it's just one of the best stories ever written, you know.
It's super dynamic. the relationships between all of the characters and how they explore that, to the ensemble of cast, the extras, the newspaper guy, the young kid that's sitting by the fire hydrant because it's warm and he wants to read that book.
It's not a fire hydrant, it's a plug-in. That's an electrical plug-in.
It just looks like a fire hydrant? Yeah.
That's an electrical plug-in, by the way. Remember, the guy tells him to get out of the way because he's trying to power up his van there on the delivery.
Elon Musk started early.
Look at William Byrd's. Can you highlight William Byrd's interesting dynamic for me? I very, very much agree with him, because really, I don't really care for any of the characters. You know, I think I cared more for the kid and the guy selling newspapers. You know, than I really did for the heroes, you know, of the story. Sorry, keep going. We'll get to me in a second.
It's like they're superheroes, but they're human as well, with very flawed. Yeah. You know, they have their flaws, they have their issues. Like I said, it's like a tale of superheroes that have to deal with the pitfalls of being normal humans. Almost, it's like if superheroes weren't necessarily superheroes, they just had all those extra pitfalls. Which, that, I mean, the more I think about it, the more I look back on it, the more I want to read it again. I'm like, wow, that was really good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I really like the Cold War dynamic you were talking about. Really, it was written in 86, 85, of course. And that really just takes the whole story and grounds it in reality. Because at that point in the 80s, like, the tensions were so high between America and Russia. It was just a never-ending conflict, from the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 60s all the way to the middle 80s.
Drago, right?
Yeah, to Rocky versus Drago.
That bastard killed Apollo.
It was just a never-ending conflict. So you kind of finally get one person who's like, how do we end this Cold War before escalation just gets too escalated? So that really just, it took this like big fantasy world and just dragged it kicking and screaming into reality.
Yeah, and you know what was a really big point that I didn't catch on until you just mentioned that, was one of the things that the dynamic that they showed between individuals and characters in the book was coffee and TV, coffee and papers and conversations. And that's how I remember that as a kid in the 80s, when neighbors would come over for coffee, they would talk about Cold War stuff like that, and they would have the daily newspaper there. And that's just mind-blowing on that day and age back then.
Absolutely.
New York, man. The hot dog stands on the streets.
Yep.
Newspaper stands, and a little boy reading a pirate comic. What do you think, Discovery Bay?
All right. So I had mentioned earlier that I never read this, but I'd seen the movie, and I was worried that was going to ruin this for me. It didn't. I'll tell you that. It didn't ruin it for me. And reading this is an adult discussion. The topics in this are about humans and how we are acting towards each other and how we become numb to the society. And it's just such a huge topic. But what I enjoyed most about this is the different books, as you got through each of the books, some of these, the way that they wrote these stories, the old man selling newspapers with the kid reading the book that he doesn't ever buy. Right. And the transitions that are happening between scene to scene to scene to scene. Actually, before you get to him, when they're at that funeral and they're transitioning from, you know, how they each met the comedian, and during the whole time, it goes in and out of the sermon. And it works. The wording of the sermon flowed into this scene.
That was very well
how he meets the comedian, or his individual story, and then it flows right out of it. And then this comic book this kid's reading is blowing me away, man. This story of this guy building the raft out of dead bodies, and you know, just it's mind-blowing story. And I've never ever read anything like this, to where you're reading a panel of the kid's comic book, but the dialogue is of the kid, or not even of the kid, of whoever's having a conversation with the newspaper man. So the and you go to the next panel, and the next panel, and the next panel, and I'm reading two different stories going on at once, but actually you're reading three, because you've got the overall arc of the entire story, which is all being maintained while these conversations are happening about, man, I can't believe Russia's doing this. Oh yeah, you really think we're going to war? I mean, that's what people were thinking this is fantastic how he wrote this and how he weaves this story. By the way, I want to go figure out what ends up happening to this guy on the boat, that because I didn't actually finish. I only got to 7. This is a big read, guys, for a whole week when you got kids.
Ooh.
When we got to the origin story of Dr. Manhattan, boom, I was blown away with that book, man. When he starts, he goes to Mars to chill because he's got to go away from it all. There's like there was accusations, hey, everybody you come in contact with gets cancer. What? He's like, I'm out of here. He's got to go relax. I need to think. And he starts going back through it all. And this is where you get this history. But the way they do it is just amazing. Because literally from panel to panel, you are jumping all over the timeline. You're jumping back, forward 10 seconds earlier. And he's saying the light that's going to hit this, hit me now, it was 200 years ago is when it came out. And you're just blowing you away with these facts of time and time and time and time. I've never read anything like it. It was just absolutely blew me away because in the time that it took me to read, he goes, I dropped the photo. And in the time that it takes you to read, you think about 6, and he goes, and 16 seconds ago, I dropped the photo. And you're like, oh, it was about 16. He's just blowing me away. Right. So yeah, this is just something kind of next level. I don't think, and I've read a lot of good stuff this year, guys. I've read a lot of good stuff. I've never read anything so intricately weaved is this. I'll tell you what, those are characters that should have been represented even better in that movie. That kid is an important character for me in this. As I read, I care about the kid. Yep. There's a scene where the guy goes, hey, are you going to pay for the book? And then the newspapers get delivered. And the headline is Russia invades Afghanistan. And you just feel the emotion in the guy's face. And he takes his hat off and he goes, here, you can have this and you can keep that book. Yeah. And the kid's like, what? And he goes, life's too short. You just don't. And I feel for these two characters. They have nothing to do really with this overall story. I think maybe they do. I don't know. I'm only in the 7th book. But the way that they help tell this tale is fantastic. So no, I'm all in right now. I think this is going to be one of the best ones ever. I haven't finished it. So, I am at book 7. I got to admit, I did not get through 12. But it's great so far. I haven't been able to put it down. And you know what? There was a comment in the chat, and I do want to agree with you. I do care about Rorschach. I do care about Kovac. And I know he dies because I watched the movie. But I do care about him, man. He had a rough growing up, man. He saw some. He is the the clay that was molded by the society that he grew up in. Mm-hmm. And oh man, he's a great character. Great character.
His lack of emotions, his lack of he's so reserved from a lot of the decisions he makes. He's like, yep, I'm just gonna do this, and regardless of the outcome. And when he bashes that dog's skull and splits it wide open, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, with him, he only sees in like black and white, on or off. There's never any gray. There's never no in between, and that's what makes the Rorschach, the Question, Mr. A, all of those like Ditko and Ayn Rand. Well, I always say Ayn Rand because that's where Ditko got a lot of the behind the scenes personality traits for those characters was from the writings of Ayn Rand, and a lot of her stuff is, that black and white type stuff. But damn, he was violent. And like JB says, man, Dr. Manhattan, all of his memories, he's experiencing life at the same time. So something that's happening in the future, he can see that in the present, and then he can see the stuff in the past. He's just all over the place. I love that character. And his before Watchmen storyline was damn good too. It was just like that, JB, where you're like in and out of these different timelines all throughout his life and everything. Really freaking cool. And I think that has the old Adam Hughes artwork to it too.
That has that. And I always dig these types of stories when they reference them because you don't know. He even mentions it. Is it the fat guy who stepped on the watch? Was that the turning point? Because then I had to fix the watch, and then I left it in the coat, and then I left it in the. Where was the turning point? Well, when his dad came home and decided you're not working on watches, and he took that shit and he threw it off the freaking off the stairs, and he said, "You need to get into this now." And change the direction of his whole life. what was the point? Was this always destined to happen to him? I just don't know. It's kind of freaky. Plus, how does DC introduce? I didn't read this in the 80s, guys. So when DC introduces a character like this that changes everything, I mean, is he the most powerful character in the DC universe?
Well, that's a great question. Because, I mean, when you look back through the whole story, does he not seem portrayed? It seems like Alan Moore's portraying him as God. He's in every timeline. He's able to speak in every area, like existence. That he walks on water in a couple of the panels. A lot of the things that he does almost feels like he's being almost like Alan Moore's portraying him as God, which is, I wonder if you guys had any thoughts on that.
Well, I totally see it. Just with his powers and the way he can alter things, reality, time. Pretty much that is a lot of the, I don't know what God's powers are or whatnot, but that's probably what they are.
What did the comic book community think when DC decides in the mid '80s that they're going to introduce the most powerful character in their universe?
Well, what do you think, Carson? Because we did have Captain Atom. Now, my Captain Atom, I didn't read a lot of Ditko's Captain Atom. I do have some hardcovers in there that have him in there from the Charlton days. Captain Atom, I guess, from when I was watching, was on Justice League Unlimited, and he was the blue style with that little logo on his chest. But he was pretty damn powerful, and I remember him and Superman even were tussling in a couple of matches, But what's your thoughts on that one, Carson?
Oh, yeah. The unfortunately for Dr. Manhattan, there's one thing that he's not more powerful than, and that's character rights battles in the real world.
Character rights battles?
I mean, it would have been one of those things if Alan Moore and DC were you can use the character all you want. I'm sure we would have seen, Dr. Manhattan involved.
It's not part of the
comics
DC
in the
universe.
early 90s and all that stuff. I mean, I think that was eventually the plan to segue them into, but Drew makes a pretty solid point. He says, this is not the DC universe, though. It's only one print away from being released as a DC Black Label. Which
Gotcha.
As snarky as that comment is from Drew, he's not wrong, unfortunately.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and it was made clear, in the 80s during that time frame, that it was not part of the DC universe, however Mouse calls it.
Okay.
That's why they were, wanting to have Moore create new characters and not kill off those Charlton ones.
Are they now? I mean, I didn't want. Are they now? Isn't the last storyline intermingled these?
Clock. Yes, Carson.
Doomsday Clock intermingled these characters now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about Doomsday Clock later in the show, but that's a controversial topic kind of right now because of some of the stuff they're getting ready to do in the DCU. So, we'll cover that. But my thoughts overall on the Watchmen is this may sound a little crazy to some people, but this is the ultimate. Don't judge a book by its cover. And I'm not even referring to this cover. I'm more talking about that scene where they get together, the crime busters, and they pay a guy to take a picture of the crime busters, and they're all smiling, giving the thumbs up, looking cool as Rorschach can look. And, basically that's their superhero mugshot, basically. Mm-hmm. And that's the closest thing you will see them do to superheroing in this whole comic book, basically. So Andy made a good point in our chat earlier. He's like, it's like I'm reading a soap opera adapted in the comic form. And I'm just like, yeah, the superheroing in this book, you could probably almost count on one hand the amount of actual superhero stuff that happens. Because honestly, offhand, I can't think of too many. Maybe when Laurie and Dryberg are fighting off some thugs, but they're more defending themselves than actually doing anything else. I think
when the super smart guy gets super quick and he dodges the bullet and then blocks the bullet and knocks the on the attempted death. That was kind of superhero.
Except you find out he hired that guy to do that to him.
Oh,
yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. Sorry, but not too much superhero there. But yeah, in terms of getting to know the characters, your most fun characters are honestly probably Dr. Manhattan and Rorschach. And I'll talk about Rorschach for a second. I think Drew put it in the chat earlier. Alan Moore doesn't want you to like him. He's a trash human being, basically. And I don't know if I agree with the Alan Moore part of that, but definitely agree with the trash part. I mean, you could see him literally being raised in a trash environment, but he brings himself to the level of trash throughout the story of Watchmen. And like you said, it's just after a while, things are in black and white with him. If he sees someone commit a crime, he needs to let the whole world know about that crime, as you'll find out later in the book. But yeah, he just does not care about, right or wrong at that point. If they committed a crime, he's going to throw a guy in a refrigerator and shut the refrigerator. He's going to handcuff a guy to a furnace and light the whole place on fire. And the only way he's going to let him
do that was great. He goes
get loose, and he's going to wait and see if he actually escapes, and then kill him anyway.
That was like, he left him the hacksaw and everyking. He's like, you're not going to get through the cuffs, but you can still get out. And the guy didn't get out.
I think one of my favorite lines of the whole book so far was, first of all, he's walking through this prison and all the banter in the prison of, I'm going to rape you, get you, going to bet you, and
I love that.
Blah 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 blah. And then there's a point where someone tries to attempt something on him, and he thwarts it off, and he's running out as they're carrying him out. He says, "Remember, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me."
Very calculated.
Yeah, I won't be deep frying any food anytime soon, thanks to Rorschach.
Yeah. God, that was good. That was really good. And he got the guy so super pissed, and he got his arms through the prison cell, and he tied his fingers together, broke his fingers, and then they had to kill him to get to him. Oh man. And then he just calmly started killing everybody after that.
Yeah, and I don't know, the whole scene that really changes Rorschach for me is where he goes to Moloch's apartment, and he's still trying to use Moloch to figure out the overall conspiracy as to what's going on. And he goes in, and Moloch's been shot in the head. He's been set up. He's already handled the gun that killed Moloch, and that's when you hear the police show up. And then he starts trying to light the police on fire and throw them out windows and everything. And then when they capture him, they're calling him, slurs. They're talking about how bad he smells. They're talking about the raises in his shoes because one of his shoes falls off and he has a hole in his sock. You really just see him completely exposed as this piece of human garbage, basically.
But he spends the entire time talking like he's well above it, and then he's bringing himself down to that level when he's like, I'm going to go to the underbelly, the underscene to get my information.
At least I finally figured out what that material was. They explained what that material was, that his mask was made out of, that it was a material that was made by Dr. Manhattan, that they had. Yeah, if you read it, he goes, they were making it into a dress, and the girl didn't like the dress, and the black and the white would never meet. So they were going to throw it out. He cut it up and did something with it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then, like I said, my other favorite character is probably definitely Dr. Manhattan. He has all the power in the world, but it's just you go back to Peter Parker and Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility. And then this is one of those instances where you just see the great responsibility weigh so much on because the American government is asking him to do so much, because there's this whole line where it's the newscaster goes, "We have discovered the Superman and he's American."
That's a line. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's the other scene where, the comedian, he's leaving, and the pregnant lady is like, "Hey, you got to take care of this." He's "Get away from me." And she done whips him with the knife across the head. And he kills her, right? Yeah. It tells you how whacked out the comedian was, right? Well, he shoots down this lady who's got his baby, and then he has this conversation with Dr. Manhattan. He's like, "Dude, you could have stopped her from getting me with the knife. You could have turned the bullet into smoke. You could have teleported her to anywhere. Mm-hmm. You could have done a bunch of things. You didn't do shit. You just sat there."
Well, one of the things that was very stark about that interaction of that part of the story was, if I'm understanding this correctly, it was during the Vietnam War where he was an operative over there.
Yeah.
Staying there and shacked up with this girl, got her pregnant.
And was ready to say peace.
And then just clocked out and just punched her ticket. Like she was nothing.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he's basically priority list, Vietnam 10, New York number 1. I'm going home, baby. And then things go really haywire.
But that showed that, Dr. Manhattan, did he care at that point? Like Chris Berry, he didn't care about the humans, does he? Because he could have stopped any of it.
No, that's when comedian, I think we read this and underestimate how smart the comedian really is. He's just a raving lunatic's the problem. But the deeper you dig into his character, the more you realize how smart he was. He was the guy who uncovered this Adrian Veidt conspiracy to begin with. That's what just kind of crushed his soul and made him give up to begin with at the top of the story. He's the kind of the first guy who saw that Dr. Manhattan didn't really care about humans in that scene. He's just like, you could have done something, but you didn't. And then later we see Dr. Manhattan just get grumpy because people try to frame him up for causing cancer to his friends. So instead of like trying to prove him wrong or do something to, be different, he just goes and hides on Mars. So the comedian was kind of the first guy to kind of see things as they are in the Watchmen universe.
It's like a kind of a cross between Nick Fury and the Punisher with a little more heart. As odd as that might sound, I connected with that character a little bit. Yeah.
But you can see how, I think someone mentioned it in the chat earlier, they always do, but this was definitely the root or the inspiration for, I can see The Boys, where you look at characters and say, I don't care about what they're doing superhero wise. What are they doing behind the scenes? What's going on with them? What's going on up in their head? Because I don't know if I'd ever read anything where you really talk about, someone's mental, and they're not supposed to be superheroes. There's no superheroing going on in this book, guys. There's no superhero.
Honestly, there is one scene I just remember. It's where Laurie and Dryberg, they go and save people from a burning building. I think that's the only example I can think of.
I was getting there. But it's like that's my favorite character in the whole story is Dryberg, Night Owl. Just the middle-aged guy drinking coffee, hanging out, and just happens to have this whole garage full of trinkets and a ship and a suit, and he's got normal guy problems. He's got real life regular problems. Then she puts on this suit and gets them all charged up again. He gets his suit, and next thing you know, they're banging in a spaceship. I mean, that was really
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question. I was going to ask your guys your favorite characters. So Andy, you said Dryberg / Night Owl, who's in my opinion, I think he's the everyman of this story. He's kind of the one guy who's not for the most part, he's not a complete scumbag, but he likes to sit at home and load up his belly a little bit. But unfortunately, by the end, he's kind of with the rest of the crime busters in the fact that you killed millions to save billions. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing too, so we don't uncover this whole truth conspiracy and end the Cold War. So. JB, did you have a favorite character throughout this whole thing?
It's got to be Rorschach. I mean, you're invested in him. I think he carries the story. The first panel is his journal, right? Isn't it a journal entry into Rorschach? So you're following him along. I do care for him when it's all said and done. So yeah. Yeah,
I just kind of look at him as a conspiracy nut by the end of all this. I'm what if Fox Mulder was a superhero and he was a little bit deranged and raised by a hooker? And I don't know. That crossed my mind.
Well, it kind of reminds me of Cletus Cassidy. The red hair, the freckled face, the craziness. Cletus Cassidy way back before.
Sure.
Yeah, that works.
I mean, I'm trying to think if I have a favorite character. I almost want to give a shout out to Silk Spectre because I think she's the most underrated character in the book. I really like the moment where she's hanging out with Dr. Manhattan on Mars, and she is the character, just basically her being her is what convinces Manhattan to realize, these humans, each and every one of them is just a miracle with a story. And he kind of starts to unravel her story about, why would her mother, after everything the comedian did to her and put her through, why does her mother love the comedian? And you even see at the very end in issue 12, she kisses the crime buster's picture right on the comedian. So she has feelings for the comedian after all this insanity with, the attempted rape and getting drinks thrown in faces and stuff. Dr. Manhattan, that's with all of his logic and all of his power, that's the one thing that he can't figure out is just why does Laurie exist if her parents had this type of relationship? And that's what really got him engaged back into thinking about, maybe humanity's worth saving again. And I think Hallermouse just had an excellent quote in the chase: says, all the characters fit like cogs in a watch.
Yeah.
Together, they're just these random cogs. But when you combine all the characters together, you definitely get something special. That is a phenomenal quote. All right, so we're about to that point where we give this story a rating. So I'm kind of curious to hear from you guys because you haven't read it. It's been the most talked about graphic novel since the late 80s. Was this overhyped for you? Did it live up to the hype? Andy, we'll start with you. What is your score on this one?
This is still, I'm still torn on what to. I'm gonna go with a 9.4 with pressable defects. Yeah, because we're gonna get that to a 9.8. I'm gonna read it a couple more times. We're gonna get that to a 9.8 because it's just my what'd you say earlier? I'm just not experienced enough in some of the older books to like when you dive in on that, it's kind of an overload when you're trying to pick up 3 different pieces of bits of story from 3 different avenues, and you don't realize what you're getting into until halfway through the story. Well, then you got to reread it a couple more times, right? Just like Legend had said, every time he rereads it, he finds something else special about it. So I'm sticking with that 9.4 with pressable defects.
JB, you're up.
I don't know if I've given very many out, but I'm going to give this a 9.8. I think this is one of the best things I've read. Nice. This is I don't think I've ever read anything like this. I've never seen storytelling done this way, and to be surprised and to be that type of issue for me. Now I will be able to reference, hey, I read that type of stuff before. I've never read any of that type of stuff before, the way they've written some of this. It's a 9.8 for me.
Nice. Yeah, I think, JB, I'm right there with you. When I think of Watchmen, this is the bar. Everything else has tried to have to reach ever since this was released. So it basically reinvented what we think of as the graphic novel in the comic book form. Everything that's came out since the 80s, we now read books in like 5-part structures, 6-part structures, so they can release it in trades and hardcovers and capitalize on those post-release sales. This doing that in 88 and getting all those big sales is probably the reason we're reading comics in the format we are still today. So I got to give this a 9.8 myself. Like I said, it's definitely establishes that bar. The only reason I thought about giving it a 10, Jim meant, but I don't know. Just for me, the Black Freighter stuff, I'm just not into the Black Freighter stuff.
I thought that was fantastic.
I thought it was fantastic.
To it, like as I was doing my like other read just to get ready for this, I'm like, I just got to cut the Black Freighter stuff.
No, don't cut that. We gotta talk about that for a hot minute, right?
Wow, I thought that was so cool, and the story kept paralleling the real story. It was crazy.
I mean, you're talking about a guy that's battling madness out on his own. He built a raft out of freaking bodies.
Grabbed a freaking seagull out of the air.
well, then he ends up building the rest of his. After the raft gets demolished by being attacked by sharks, because obviously it's bodies and sharks. Yeah. Bodies, right? Then somehow a shark dies or he kills it, and the shark ends up being part of the raft. The crazy thing is at the end of his madness, he made it back to shore. And when he made it back to shore, he ended up going back to his hometown. And I'm pretty sure, if I read that correctly, I think in his madness, he ended up killing his wife. I think that was his wife that he killed.
Oh, no. I haven't gotten to that part yet.
We got to go back and read it again.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the Black Freighter later. But Legend, welcome back. We're just giving our final thoughts and scores on the Watchmen.
So all right, man.
Give us a CGC grade. What would you give the Watchmen?
I'd give this thing all 12 issues, CGC, Gem Mint 10.0. These are the kind of stories you're only going to see. You're only going to see these like once in your lifetime. These kind of stories, King James, compiled all them books together and cranked out that Holy Bible. Alan Moore, you got that one.
Andy, are we seeing the same comment and just blown away right now? Are we seeing the same comment? Yeah, right there.
When you figure out how the Black Freighter is the tell. Yeah. You will. That's it. That's it. That's basically the main deal. That's Adrian Veidt's story right there. The Black Freighter. But man, Jim Mint 10.0, 10 out of a 10. I can't say enough good things about this book. I'm addicted to it, man.
Bro.
I'm addicted.
Right.
I even read the Before Watchmen. I watched the Watchmen HBO series, which was freaking excellent. Before Watchmen, I enjoyed that. I didn't like the comedian, but comedian's a hard character to really like, you know. God, I keep looking in the wrong camera. I'm on my phone. Sorry about that. But yeah, man, just a kick-ass story all around. I haven't read Doomsday Clock, but the original Watchmen 10.0, Carson. Good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to talk about the fallout of the release of the Watchmen next. So I think most of the people like JB and Andy, they're just like, this book was so popular when it came out. What stopped this from becoming a movie back then, or the characters being thrown into the DC universe? I think a lot of that had to do with just Alan Moore, Dave Gibbons retained a portion of the rights to these characters once they created them for the Watchmen.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, this kind of led to the falling out between Alan Moore and DC Comics. So after this, after he got a Swamp Thing run done and that stuff, he kind of just left DC and went on his own way because of just the rights battle. Obviously, they wanted to make it into a movie way back then, but it just ended up in development hell, if you will. Certain directors called it unfilmable back in the day, especially with the technology available in the 80s. But yeah, I mean, it's at least in the secondary and trade sales, this was obviously a smash hit for them. So like I said, it really reinvented the way they thought about releasing comics, putting them together in 6-issue arcs, 12-issue arcs, what have you, and releasing it as a trade or a hardcover later down the line. But it really wasn't until Legend, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was around 2013, 2014, they finally started to be like, we're going to slowly bring back the Watchmen.
Oh, yeah.
And Watchmen form in the comics. We'll talk about the movie in a second, but what are your big takeaways from the Before Watchmen project, Legend? Because you read a lot of these.
The Before Watchmen, I've read everything except the Rorschach stuff. I loved all of them, dude. I loved the one you held up, the Darwin Cook and oh God, I almost said Palmiotti. Amanda Connor. Close, got real close. But man, freaking phenomenal story. I know some people didn't like Before Watchmen, but I really liked it because it kind of gave a little, and it wasn't Alan Moore, but it gave some prequel kind of looking in at how Lori, grew up under, her mom's tutelage, Sally, and how she wanted her to be the next Silk Spectre. Also, I mean, in that one book, you get Amanda Connor interiors, just freaking phenomenal, freaking beautiful. Love Amanda Connor, great artwork. Of course, Darwin Cook on the Minutemen storyline. You got to go in and see some more Captain Metropolis, Hooded Justice, Mothman, Dollar Bill, Sally Jupiter, the original Silk Spectre, and Comedian as a young guy, along with Hollis Mason, the original Night Owl. So, I mean, that team right there, that Minutemen book, that made me a fan. Of course, I read the Night Owl as well as the Dr. Manhattan, another two kick-ass reads right there. I read the Crimson Corsair, which is a pirate story for, kind of similar type pirate story. And damn, I've just read them all, man. I read the Comedian. That was my least favorite because he's just not a likable character. And they're all good. So I need to read Rorschach, and then one of these days read some Doomsday Clock. And like I said, the movie, I liked the original movie, had a different little ending than the Squid Monster, which was okay. And then I liked that HBO series. I've watched that, watched it first time by myself. And then the second time I watched all those episodes with my wife. She loves that show. So it's just all, man, I just love Watchmen, man. Watchmen's for life.
Nice. The Before Watchmen thing happened. And before we talk about TVs and movies, we got to mention Doomsday Clock. I think I'm the only person on the panel who's actually read all 12 issues of Doomsday Clock. It's controversial right now because rumor has it DC is getting ready to almost negate what happened in Doomsday Clock because it took so long to come out. And it, with the art and the creative direction of DC Comics in general, it was vastly delayed. But in my opinion, the story itself, I personally enjoyed the story for the most part. There was a lot of parts where it kind of dragged on, and it was unfortunately early on in the title where it just kind of went on forever with the marionette and mime storyline and that type of stuff. You could probably easily chop that out of the whole story. but I think it's a good like 8 out of 12 issues of the comic. Unfortunately, when you're making a sequel to one of the greatest, it's kind of like trying to make a sequel to Godfather's Part 1 and 2. When you got Godfather 3, it's not going to hold up. It's more of like an epilogue or just a follow up to this great tale that was told. So if you read Doomsday Clock, go into it with an open mind. That basically this is just a version of the DC universe introducing the Watchmen characters, particularly Dr. Manhattan and Superman. By issue 12, to be honest, it was getting a little bit emotional for me toward the end. I really like seeing how Superman was influencing the actions of Dr. Manhattan toward the end of it. I thought it was a very touching story toward the end because at the end of the day, we talked about for the last hour, basically, when you take these characters and put them in a superhero realm, it's probably not going to go well because these really aren't the best superheroes. So they're human characters. Mm-hmm. Some of them have special abilities. And, when you think Adrian Veidt, you kind of think more of like your worst version of Batman or Lex Luthor as compared to like a good superhero. So you compare Veidt, you compare the soulless, crazy, well, not necessarily crazy, but Dr. Manhattan. It's probably not going to go the best when they meet up with each other. But I think Doomsday Clock overall, solid read. I hope DC doesn't just sweep it under the rug. I want them to keep it around and acknowledge it, basically. So the last thing we'll talk about is just the other media sources for the Watchmen. We already kind of talked about how the movie in the 80s got caught in development hell. But in, I think, 2009, we finally got the Watchmen movie. It was directed by Zack Snyder, distributed by Warner Brothers, so, of course, owns DC. So, JB, have you seen the Watchmen movie? I think you were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, I definitely seen the movie. Actually, I think I've seen it a couple of times. I don't know if actually, looking back on it now, that they actually did the characters justice, man. When you don't read the book, you're like, yeah, these characters are great. But no, I think they, all in all, it was good. But I still don't think they did the characters justice, especially like a Rorschach. They didn't give him nearly the love he should have got. They could have gotten deep into him. Ooh, that would have been good.
Andy, what about you? Have you viewed this movie?
I haven't. I will be changing that here soon.
Nice. Now, Legend, I know you love you some Watchmen movie. I'll let you talk about it.
I got that ultimate. I don't know what it is. It's the director's cut or something. It doesn't have the Tales from the Black Freighter inside that. I know that. I think that's the like ultimate or whatever. I just got the regular director's cut, but it's a great freaking movie. I have watched the God, was it Tales Under the Hood? It was like the little TV type 2020 ABC 2020 style deal they did like in the 80s close that talked about Hollis Mason's book release. Maybe that was more in the 70s though, was when that aired on TV or on their TV as far as the Watchmen universe goes. I thought that was really cool. Well done. I've done the motion comic, which was basically just the comic. So, yeah, I was out the window like the comedian. Yeah, probably so, man. I've had some internet issues, man. Someone's going to get dropped out of a damn window pretty soon. But yeah, I tell you, that I love the Watchmen. Damn, I don't even know where I'm at because I'm falling out of a window right now with Kenny's like waving down at me.
Man, Williams made a good point. William made a very good point there. I bet you if that movie was re-released now, it would go over way better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I loved the movie. Like I said, I had seen the movie first, so I didn't know all about this big freaking plan. Veidt had his plan in the movie, but the book, it was more extravagant because you pulled in all these like famous people to work on this big squid monster on an island. They even took a brain of a psychic and put that brain inside this monster or something. I mean, they were doing some weird ass experiments and stuff. It was just freaking awesome. But and then the TV show pretty much is a direct sequel to the original 12 issues, man. The TV show, probably the best TV show I've seen in like the past 5 years. And I like a lot of those CW shows, but you got HBO, you got Watchmen. That's a killer combo right there.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Andy.
Well, I mean, what's amazing is there's a resurgence in media tales and stories from the 80s. Like look at Chernobyl on Netflix, and we can go on for 5 more minutes on other things.
Good series.
So this seems like a great time to do a Watchmen movie done well, done right. Deliver people back into that time frame, that style of life that people are thinking about. That they're, I mean, if Chernobyl and a lot of these other shows are doing so well, it seems like it'd be a really good avenue for a movie.
You know, with Gomer, he brings up a good point. The music in the HBO series is all done by Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails.
Yes, I did hear that. Oh man, love me some Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah, and when Trent Reznor heard about the Watchmen series, I'm from what I've heard, he called whoever's in charge of the series at HBO, and he's just like, "Hi, my name's Trent Reznor. I really like the Watchmen. I'm doing the music on the Watchmen."
Did you tell me that last night?
Yeah,
because I remember I heard that from somebody.
But yeah, the series was amazing. It's definitely, I think it was 9 or 10 episodes. Definitely worth the watch. It's a one and done season. It was created by Damon Lindelof of Lost fame. Luckily, he learned his mistake from Lost. He's just like, I want to make a story with a beginning, middle, and end instead of like a good premise, and then we'll just run with it and make up the ending when we get there, and it'll be kind of, not everyone will like it. I thought this was it got better with every episode. It's one of those rare TV seasons that, like, usually with like your best TV show, sometimes the pilot is the most like impactful episode. But for me, I mean, the pilot was still impactful, especially the way it ends with Don Johnson's character. But as you keep going, they actually give Hooded Justice a really awesome origin. And that's probably my top favorite moment of that series is the Hooded Justice episode,
finally,
the Minutemen stuff.
The very first Minutemen finally getting the due that he deserves. And another great thing about the TV, I got to ask real quick, JB, did you see this HBO series?
No, I have not seen it. But now, after I read this, you're telling me that that's the time to I finish this,
the HBO
go right into the HBO series. Yeah,
you're going to see there's a little Dr. Manhattan love in there, and he's going to take you on one of those rides through past, present, and future, all at the same time, all in the same reality. It's like, oh my God, here we go again.
You got to mention
Dr. Manhattan, man. But
you got to mention Jeremy Irons as Adrian Veidt steals the show.
Perfect.
It's so good
right there, because he's getting older. He's been where he's been for a while, and he's kind of losing it. But then he seems to start getting his bearings back. One thing I wanted to talk about the HBO show was you get another throwback to Ditko's Mr. A, Rorschach, and The Question by seeing the very first part where there's the cowboy on white that's getting chased by a cowboy on black, a masked cowboy. And that's really symbolic with the whole Watchmen mythos, actually. Just that one thing. Of course, go figure, I'm saying all this, and the actual little clip was in black and white because it was like, I guess, the 30s or something like that. Tulsa, 1921, some stuff like that. Man, y'all are going to see it. Y'all are going to love it. Watch some HBO. Watch some Watchmen. Read some Watchmen. Go do what you need to do. Just go outside. Just watch some men. If you're into that, just watch something.
Oh man, so I guess as we conclude, are there any final thoughts on the Watchmen as a whole? So Andy, we'll start with you and go around the horn.
Like I said, I gotta reread it, and when I go back, I'm going back and reading the actual comic books. I don't think the media of an electronic device really did that story justice, in my opinion. So I want to go back and read it again, and then I'm going to put Legends Thought in my mind, and I'm going to go back and read it again, and I'm going to look for other cool things, and that, paying attention to the Black Freighter. I'm actually going to, hopefully next week's read's not going to be too big because I'm fitting this one in again this week.
Nice. Legend, what about you, man? I know you love the Watchmen.
For me, like I've done the first time I read it based off, Howler Mouse and the rest of the community letting me know about it. I guess that was probably like 2013. Read it then. I liked it more than the movie because there was just more substance in the book. Although the movie, like Comic Cat 84 said, Kenny said that there were panel for panel type stuff in the movie, but damn, there was just something about that book. And then doing the before Watchmen stuff also is great. But yeah, if you just want that spiritual successor to the 12 issues of Watchmen, you'll watch the HBO series, man. That's where it gets real. How did no one miss? Oh yeah, you know, he did have his schlong out. You know,
wow, we made it 1 hour, 4 minutes, and 37 seconds before we mentioned Dr. Manhattan. For the most part,
when you see all that in the comic, you just kind of start to forget it's even there, unless you're just like a young guy that like just keeps fixating on blue. Not saying, Chris, not saying you do that or you look at Smurf wieners, but I'm just saying, I mean, you don't mess with Papa Smurf, and Papa Smurf is Dr. Manhattan. That's all I'm saying. 10 out of 10, JB Discovery. I'm throwing it to the DB over here.
No, I, you know, as I mentioned earlier, this is told a story in a way I've never seen it told before. And that got me. The two books specifically were that, the Dr. Manhattan, you know, when he tells his origin story, and then the other one where it's mostly the Black Freighter during the dialogue. That is just great stuff, man. This is really good, and I will be finishing this tonight. So,
JB, you bring up a good point. With Alan Moore and Gibbons in this story, they did something that no one else has ever done in the medium of comic books. So, you know, once y'all do read this story and you find out how powerful and the emotional roller coaster that you're on when you read this story, how, you know, every one of those players, you know, those Watchmen, you know, whether it be Comedian, Rorschach, Night Owl, Laurie Jupiter, Silk Spectre, Doc Manhattan, all those characters, I think I named them all, but, you know, all the kind of current ones, you know, it's never been done before. So take, you know, what you read and apply it to different aspects of your life. Do something that you've never done before. You know, you just go out there and streak run butt naked, you know, say, hey, look at my blue D, I'll paint it up for you. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is just go out there and do some shit that no one else is doing. Don't be a damn cookie cutter. Like, go out and do some shit. You know, y'all like doing YouTube videos. Everyone in the chat has YouTube channels. Make those YouTube channels your own, and all the comic books you buy yourself. You know, we'll tell you some stuff. These guys are going to tell you some great modern reads you can read, but the best judge of comic books and characters is yourself. So go out there and pick out some good stuff, man. Carson, what do you think?
Yeah, my final thoughts on the Watchmen. We say it all the time, Legend on the Friday show. There's no wrong way to collect.
Yeah, no wrong.
There's no wrong way to read. We're never going to judge anyone for, you know, if you want to pick up comics for the cover, great. If you like reading stuff digitally, great. If for whatever reason you are in this hobby and have not read the Watchmen, in my opinion, this is one of the most essential reads you can pick up. If you don't have it, like I think I said last week, go knock on your neighbor's door, ring their doorbell, say, hey, you have a copy of the Watchmen? Most likely the answer will be yes, and they will let you borrow it. Read the Watchmen if you haven't already. If you made it 1 hour and 7 minutes in this episode and haven't got to the point, at least just go read the Watchmen and form your own ideas about it.
I want to live where you live in this comic book community.
I'm not saying they have comics, but they should have the Watchmen on the shelf at least. They got to have the Watchmen, in my opinion. So, if there's like one book we've reviewed on Modern Men, I know we've reviewed Saga and a lot of other phenomenal reads, but this is probably the top of the list of recommended reads that we have talked about on the show. It starts with this book here and works its way down. So, like I said in my review, this is the bar. I highly, highly recommend reading it for whatever reason you've missed out on it. So that's my final thoughts on Watchmen.
And one more thought for you, Carson.
Yes.
When you get Howler Mouse to come out, and Howler Mouse, you know, he's old school, man. You know, there's some modern classics he's enjoyed and he's read a lot. But man, he showed his love and support for modern men tonight as these modern men were reviewing the Watchmen for y'all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as soon as I saw him in the chat, Legend, I knew that was gonna pop you.
I know, dude. I'm just marking out. I got one of my favorite all-time. Goddamn, must be in my top 3 all-time favorite YouTube personalities of all time, hands down. Howler Mouse is in the top 3 along with Hippies Collectibles and Captain Strainoff. But I mean, he was here, and we had Watchmen and Andy and Discovery Bay and Carson, and we didn't have no filibusters. Thank you, little niece, little baby, little baby, for keeping that guy away for a while. So we can get a little break
when we start about Doomsday Clock. But now, congratulations, Uncle Drew. Hopefully everything's going well at the hospital for him and his family. But we talked about Howler Mouse. Before we get into our last piece of business, I do want to visit the chat once because we got so involved in talking about the Watchmen. We didn't get a chance to talk about this live chat. We've had Gore Vidal here since the beginning. Big thanks, man, for checking out the show tonight. I know he's been keeping up with the weekly reads and that stuff. So big thanks for helping out, keeping the reads going, Gore. Definitely enjoy seeing your comments in the chat, man. We got the immortal Big E Shack. He's clanging, he's banging. There's my one Big E Shack impression for the night.
There you
go. Drew, by the way, he is his sister is giving birth to his niece right now. So once again, congratulations to Drew and his family for welcoming a new member. We got Mr. Gretzky 9966 is in that chat tonight.
Oh yeah, Mr. Gretzky, one of the best. Yeah,
that's for sure. We got Chris Barrett. He's been here since the first comment. So he's
got to read both.
Saga or Watchmen. The answer is both. We all agree.
So much good stuff. I mean, and don't stop there. Keep freaking reading, Chris. Don't just read 2 books and call it quits.
We got here's one of my favorites, Comics Addiction. Man, I feel like I haven't seen that guy for a minute. That guy's
CA. Yeah, I haven't seen the CA myself.
He's one of my favorite chatters. We got Tim. It's DNP, Downright Nerdy Podcast. He's a great supporter of the show, so thank you for hopping in that chat. And then we got Kenny from Comic Head 84. He's been in the chat for a while. And then Aggressively Relaxing hopped in. Cardstock Variant. Galmer, he's been here for a while tonight, putting in some great comments in that chat. But without further ado, because I wanted to get the chat woke up and everyone back typing and stuff, because you guys know how we do. We're live. We got to do that randomizer.
Yeah.
So if you guys like our review or previous reviews, this is where we give you guys that chance to suggest and tell us what we're going to read next week. So I have a blank randomizer here. What I need your guys' help with is filling up this randomizer with reads you guys want us to review at the top of the show next week. And whatever wins this randomizer is what we're going to do. So I'm going to start with Chris Barrett and his suggestion with Dark Knight Returns.
There you go. Let's get some more DC on there.
So while you guys are working on that the chat's working on that really quick, we talked about Downright Nerdy Podcast in the chat. And everybody tonight, once you're done with Modern Men here, be sure to go over to the Downright Nerdy Podcast channel, hit subscribe, like, comment on the videos. They are doing a mini milestone giveaway announcement tonight as soon as we're done with Modern Men.
Oh, very cool.
I think it's their 50th episode. They're looking forward to celebrating with everybody, and they don't joke around when they do giveaways. Everybody, trust me, you should head over there and check it out.
Yeah, make sure y'all click on Downright Nerdy Podcast. There should be like 3 dots like to the right of his name. Click on that. Go to his channel. Sub him up because you will not be disappointed. Downright Nerdy Podcast is your podcast for all things nerdy, so you might as well keep it dirty. Right, Carson? Yeah. That's always something,
What about Immortal Hulk?
Okay.
Ooh, I've not read that yet.
And Little Bird.
Okay.
Dark Knight Returns, Death of Superman, Black Pearl. A lot of good ones up here.
What was the Spider-Man life story?
Oh, okay.
Got some good reads here.
Darth Vader Volume 1 from, I think that was Kieran Gillen who did that first volume.
Charles Soule on the second one. Yeah, that Darth Vader, I heard great things about that too. God, all of those Star Wars books, I looked at the art, I've heard how good they are. It's just, dude, Star Wars, you got to add like a whole nother thing of stuff to your pool. But yeah, I heard they were really good. Wicked and Divine, I've heard about that one too.
Oh, that's a good.
Yeah, these are good. What I love about Modern Men is so many of these modern reads I've never read before. I'm such in my Fantastic Four, my Shazam bubble sometimes that I need to pop that bubble and get some of this good modern goodness,
Is God Country on there yet?
It will be.
Getting Gore Vidal's Arkham Asylum in there. Grant Morrison.
I actually never read that. I really like
Grant Morrison. You know, me and you, Carson, we love our Grant Morrison. Damn, he's one of the best ever.
Actually, I don't know if Bear Island Comics is in chat. He was giving me he was throwing shade in my direction for making you guys read Grant Morrison.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him I haven't made him read Animal Man yet, and he's like, "Oh God, you're gonna put him through that?" I'm like, "You bet I will."
Oh, Animal Man. I mean, that's some of my favorite.
For you, buddy. Reaver. That's one I have.
Silver Surfer Black.
Ooh, okay.
Carson, you never know. We may be doing next year, a couple of years from now, y'all will be picking Green Lantern Season 2. And Green Lantern Season 2 Issue 1 just dropped this Wednesday. Of course, classic Grant Morrison, Liam Sharp on the artwork. Already a phenomenal read.
Good one, Airboy the Barbarian. DC New Frontier.
Oh, shit. That is a good one. That's one I have not read. I've seen the animated.
Once and Future, Big Ben.
Yep. Oh, God, yes.
Ready. Yeah, absolutely.
Old Man Hawkeye. Okay.
Did
Old
you get
Logan?
Moebius the Inkle? How about that Moebius the Inkle?
Cardstock Grant says we're going to go Saga Volume 3 because why not? And then Legend, what was your suggestion?
Yep.
This is a Gore Vidal suggestion. It's Moebius.
Oh, Moebius. Okay.
Moebius. I've not read that.
Dude. Gore Vidal, also one of the stalwarts of the comic book community. He's been in the comic book community a really long time, and he's always got some good books and some good rhymes.
All right. I think, we got a whole bevy of suggestions here. So we got Dark Knight Returns, Death of Superman. Biggie Shaq's been suggesting that since like the first episode.
And it's good too.
Black Pearl, that's a Dark Horse one by Mark Hamill. I have no idea what that book is, but I know Gretzky has suggested it like almost every week as well. I think it was Silver Surfer by Dan Slott. Someone said volume 6 or 7, but I'm going with the Dan Slott one because that's the one if I remember right, that should be about that. Six Gun. I don't know what Shutter
we
volume
did Southern Bastards 90.
Yeah, we did do Southern Bastards. That was a good one.
It was. I read volume 2, by the way.
Drew, I'm not sure what that is, but if it wins, we'll ask him and find out. Marvel's 94, Alex Ross, Immortal Hulk.
Ooh, yes, thank you.
Little Bird, House Powers, Vex, Spider-Man Life Story, Wicked and Divine. That was my suggestion. Darth Vader, Black Widow by Mark Waid, I Hate Fairyland, Arkham Asylum, God Country, Animal Man, Reaver. I think that's Justin Jordan, if I remember right. I've definitely recognized the cover. Silver Surfer Black Beetle, I believe that's the Francesco Francavilla series, if I remember right. DC New Frontier.
Black Beetle, that is a Francavilla. That's Dynamite Studios, I want to say. Or Dynamite
Hawkeye, Old Man Logan Saga, Volume 3, and Moebius the Inkle, which, once again, I'm not sure what that is, but sounds really cool. Maybe we'll try to
find it.
Take care of that baby, bro.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to hit it once and see what happens. I think this is one of the most eclectic randomizers we had yet. I have no idea what's going to happen here. Reaver wins. I have Reaver. I have no idea.
Who wrote Reaver?
Well, I've got to look back into that chat and see who wrote that one.
Wait a minute. Like, it just came out, right?
Yeah,
I have it. I've read it. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah.
I have it. Yeah, it's good.
I think
it's good.
Big Ben. He also suggested
anyway.
There it is. Right there.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Shit. Yeah, this is going to be a good one because JB's read this one.
Yeah, there's a great twist at the end too. Great twist at the end.
I love the twist at the end.
So I think this is the first read on the show. I actually haven't read already, so I can't wait. It's gonna be a first experience for me reading this. So absolutely awesome. I can't wait. So
cool.
That pretty much concludes the show, guys. A big supersized bonus Watchmen episode. Thank you guys so much for joining us in the chats, and I think this is a lot of fun. So we'll go down the horn. We'll start with ComicManAndy. Andy, any final thoughts tonight? Where can people find you on the internets?
Oh, wow. I got tons of final thoughts, but everybody can find me here on the Comic Core Family Network. Modern Men Monday, I will always be here. Occasionally, I'll pop in some of the other shows. You guys can occasionally find me on the Silverman's Comics Network. You guys can find me on my own channel as well. We're doing some things, and I'm really really, really excited. I'm going to do a giveaway here soon. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to put my video together. We're going to do a community giveaway, and I got a stack of books over there, and they're not slouches. We're going to celebrate the community, and we're going to give back all that good karma that I've been receiving. And you guys can check out Pinky's Out Podcast, Pinky's with a Y, and we're still trying to get together for our next episode where we just drink beer, talk culture, and talk about the beer, and keep drinking beer and keep drinking beer until somebody starts saying something spicy. So check that out.
Awesome. Well, big thanks, Andy. JB, what about you? Final thoughts and where can people find JB?
Well, thanks for having me, man. This show is great. I'm serious. We need to keep a running tally of the stuff we've read because it has been some of the absolute best stuff I have read ever. I mean, this last year, this has just been some of the best titles. From Saga to Black Hammer to Southern Bastards and Paper Girls. And I mean, come on, man. We have read just some fantastic stuff. So thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I've been taking some time off. You know, we had a 4-day weekend, so I had the family. And it looks like I'm probably going to take tomorrow off, too. I'll be back Wednesday. I'll be back Wednesday with a pop-up shop show and a disco after dark. For sure, Wednesday. But tomorrow I'm gonna head up to my cabin up in the mountains of Mariposa and get that guy ready because I'm going to spend the weekend up there next weekend. We're going to spend the weekend up in Mariposa.
Yeah. No disco after dark tonight?
Not tonight. No. Nope.
Yeah, definitely check that. That's one of my favorite live shows, that Disco After Dark, man. You got something special there. But me, you can find me youtube.com/CWoodard19. I'll be going live tomorrow night. About 7 p.m. Eastern. I got a couple pickups I'm going to show off. Plus, I've got I got a UPS package in the mail with a couple certain Ninja Turtle figures I'm going to show off tomorrow. So stay tuned. Cool. In terms of what's going on the Comic Core channel, I always just invite everyone to check out the Modern Men playlist that we got here on the channel. It actually has all 19 episodes of Modern Men, including this episode tonight. So if you guys like this episode, you're checking out for the first time.
I've also got the Modern Men playlist on my channel with all 19 episodes.
That's awesome.
Yep. I look forward to that every week.
So yeah, definitely check those episodes out on the Rewind. I think they're all great quality episodes. We've had a lot of fun reading the stuff we've read. So definitely go check that stuff out on the Rewind. Tomorrow here at 10 p.m. Eastern, we should have that Golden Guys. They're going to be back. JD Comics. Knights of Old, DS Comics, and you might get a Midwest Comp Man Paul if he's not gone too soon. We'll see who's going to be on that show tomorrow night. Wednesday, you have the greatest comic book show ever. Those guys are absolutely hilarious. You got Whitewell Comics, one of the funniest guys in the whole community, the driest delivery.
They're the second greatest comic book show. We're the first greatest.
There you go.
You got John's Comics with Kids, who's been killing it lately. On his own channel and on the greatest show. We already mentioned him, Bear Island Comics. And then gone too soon, Jason Cantu. Definitely check that out. We're still working on, we're pitching a Thursday show right now. We're hoping to get a show back launched on Thursdays. But Friday, man, we got that A show. Friday Night Comic Core Live. We're on the rails. John Beatty couldn't make it last week, but he's going to do his darndest to come back and try to get this week. So we're going to try to have John Beatty on as a guest, which you should check out his YouTube channel as well. He's almost to 400 subscribers. Every 100 subscribers he gets on his channel, he's giving away a sketch.
Ooh.
Definitely sub up his channel. Check out what he's got going over there. He's going to have a truly special channel coming up. But you guys heard enough of me talking. I want to turn it over to our special guest of the night to lead us out. The great legend, social legend. Take it over, man.
Again, I mean, Carson, JB, Andy, and Drew, man, what y'all are doing on Monday nights is revolutionizing our comic book community as we know it, because a lot of times we get, caught in these little bubbles. We get caught on the treadmill trying to go buy and sling and do what kind of deals we can to get some sweet books, sweet keys. But when we slow down time and look between the digital lines of reality, we always go back to what we know. And that's a good read, man. Once you got a good read in you, man, that's what it's all about, man. So always y'all are doing a kick-ass job over here. Like Carson said, Tuesday, the Golden Guys, they got all the old school. If you're into that old stuff, make sure you get it slabbed because that shit's just going to fall apart anyway. So go ahead and spend your big money on Golden Age. It's going to fall apart on you. But anyway, hopefully y'all can get that stuff slabbed. Wednesday, the greatest show on earth. Check that out. I still don't quite know what they do, but people are having fun over there. And then, like Carson said, Thursdays, we'll bring it back around. But Friday, it's on the rails. It's a lot of fun on Friday nights. And like you said, we're going to see about having old Mr. Beatty here. And you never know, if he does a sketch for us on the Comic Core, we may auction it off that night, and all that money will go to the Hero Initiative. I mean, because that's
cool.
Powers us up. Another fun thing me and Carson are planning pretty soon, probably not this Friday, because I want to do it on a Friday where we don't have any special guests, but pretty soon we're going to have a best 2 out of 3 falls match on WWE 2K19. And the best 2 out of 3, the winner is going to get to keep their hair. The loser, shaven hair on live on the rail.
Oh,
I mean, like, Carson doesn't have much hair, but man, I got a nice thing going on up here. So, I don't want to lose my hair or anything.
Damn.
But if the hair's got to go, guess what? We're also going to be auctioning that off as well. A lot of you out there love to combine the aspects of professional wrestling and comic books into one culture.
Awesome.
A bag of hair in a Ziploc bag is a gimmick that everyone is going to want. So
US shipping only. I don't want to put hair on a custom.
Yeah, it's going to be priority mail shipping. We're not doing no media mail shipping on the hair. So you will virtually have the DNA samples, multiple DNA samples of the great legend himself. And you only get that live on the Comic Core, and you can find
He's already admitting his loss.
You can find it over there on YouTube. .com/R.95. And one last thing, to make it easier for everybody, since the Comic Core is at the 1,000 subs now, we also have our own URL, and that's youtube.com/Comic Corps. COMICCORPS, man, Comic Core, and you can go right to our YouTube channel page. We're going to be getting some updates to that pretty soon on the playlist. I just kind of got to log in there, create some playlists, and work on some art stuff. And man, Comic Core's just growing and growing, guys. It's awesome.
Good stuff.
But with that, fans, for the JB and the ComicManAndy and the CWood 19, this is the great legend of the Comic Core saying peace out. God bless.